Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do a walkthrough of the NVM series of video endpoints, the new edition of our video here in Q-SYS. Who's out there is already familiar with the NV series of video endpoints? Now, as expected. Now, thank you very much. I am not personally NV, but I appreciate the enthusiasm. If you are familiar with the NV series, you're probably familiar with something like this for your workflow. If you're bringing in a series of encoders and decoders, you're dragging those encoders individually into the schematic, wiring through some sort of router matrix, and then delivering them to the decoders. And that's a fine workflow for conference rooms, collaboration spaces. It's not that much work to do that. But as you can imagine, that does get increasingly difficult if you go into larger venues where you're going to be doing video by the acre. If we're talking about things like restaurants and casinos, transportation, anywhere where you are doing maybe not just 4 encoders and 4 decoders, but dozens of encoders or hundreds of decoders, this wiring paradigm would be quite prohibitive, right? Because you'd be dragging in so many wires, the matrix routing system would involve hundreds, if not thousands of buttons to try to configure the inputs to the outputs, and that just becomes a problem for you to control and manage. So the NVM series is designed to take that troublesome workflow and revolutionize it. Now, there's 2 devices as part of this new series. There is the encoder and the decoder. You can see that the encoder has 2 HDMI ins. The decoder has 1 HDMI out, as you would expect. There are a series of USB-A and C ports on both of these. The USB-C will be available for USB bridging a little bit later on after launch at some point. And they both have control via RS-232 and IR as well. For the encoder, you can encode either one or the second HDMI input as a 4K 60 in the EN1 mode. But if you would like to actually get both of those sources onto your network simultaneously, you can do so in EN2 mode with a software license. And those would both be at 4K 30. So you don't need to purchase a second encoding box just to get 2 sources onto the network. You can just expand that via the software license, and there will be other software expansions coming into the future as well. Now, we want to get rid of this wiring mechanism, as I said before. And we're going to do that by adding some brand new features inside Designer software that are really going to change the way you build this out. The first concept is to get rid of the wires and replace something with what's called a routing group. The routing group is an association of inputs to outputs that is pre-associated, and you do not have to force those connections manually. I've got one routing group set up right over here, and as you can see, it's just a single component. The only wire coming from this component is an audio wire going to my loudspeaker out, so I can get my audio into my system. If I open up that routing component, you can see that I have control over changing the audio in that room, as well as the source selection right there. But what if you have lots of routing groups? You'd still need to grab all those routing group control panels and put all of them somewhere onto your UCI, and then you'd have to do some really complicated UCI layer management to have each of those control panels available based on which one you're trying to control. So we're going to make that workflow a little bit easier as well with this NVM proxy. The NVM proxy will allow it to target any of the routing groups or individual displays and control just whatever is on that screen at the time. Think of that sort of like your universal remote at home. You don't have a universal remote for Netflix and then another universal remote for HBO, right? You just have one remote and you aim it at your screen, and whatever happens to be on the screen, it controls, and it knows how to control that. And that's true with this proxy too. You'll notice that there are commands built into the proxy that will dynamically reassociate themselves based on whatever is currently routed to that display at the time. So you don't need to drag in a whole bunch of different controls and change which one is available. You can just have these controls and they will reprogram themselves on the fly. Very nice. Now, the other 2 features we're going to add that change this entire paradigm is the NVM Designer and the NVM Manager. The NVM Designer is a way of bulk adding all of these inventory objects when you're first building out the system, so you don't need to click add 8,000 times. And NVM Designer is a way of managing all of these controls simultaneously. So here's NVM Manager, just for our 4 encoder and 4 decoder. You can see it'd be very easy to choose and assign all of the controls associated with each of these en masse. Now, here's what we're going to do to prove how easy and quick this is. I am going to build a design for you from scratch. So, I am going to start a brand new design right now. This is a fresh design. It's got nothing going on in it. All it has is the name of the core and a couple of touchscreens that are out there on the tables. I am going to control all of these displays that are in this matrix around me. I've got a row of 6 displays up at the top. I've got a row of 6 displays at the bottom. I'm going to bring 2 encoder sources to the top row and 2 for the bottom row as well. Now, even though that's only a total of 16 ultimate devices between sources and outputs, that's not that hard, but the workflow I'm going to show you would be exactly the same if it were dozens of encoders and hundreds of decoders. There's going to be no change. So imagine that this is the same booth multiplied by 1,000, and it'll still be the same speed. Now, in order to make this fun, I'm going to show how quickly you can do it by putting a timer on the side screens in order to show how quickly I can accomplish this. And in order to show you how easy it is to do it, I'm going to choose to recite a Shakespearean monologue from Hamlet, Scene 4, Act 4, while I do so. So, I'm going to start the timer. Here we go. How all occasions do inform against me and spur my dull revenge. What is a man if the chief market and good of his time be but to sleep and feed, a beast no more? Sure, he that made us with such large discourse looking before and after gave us not that capability and godlike reason to fuss in us unused. Now, whether it be bestial oblivion or some craven scruple of thinking too precisely on the events, a thought which quartered hath but 1 part wisdom and ever 3 part coward. I know not why I yet live to say to do this things to do, sith I have cost and strength and means and will to do it. Examples as gross as earth exhort me. Witness this army of such mass and charge, led by a delicate and tender prince, whose spirit with divine ambition puffed makes mouths at the invisible events. Oh, from this day forth, my thought be bloody or be nothing worth. 44.7 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what I did during that was I added a whole bunch of inventory objects into my design. And the naming convention for those inventory objects is automatically going to be assigned to them. I did not need to add those inventory objects one by one, go back and rename them, reassociate them to their locations. All of them are going to get the naming convention that I did while I was going through that wizard. Now, it also chose to associate them to the routing groups that I wanted to. It enumerated them appropriately. And as the core is getting the design right now, it's pushing that out to all the displays. Right now, you can see that they're blanking out because the old design is no longer running. And they will very soon be populated with the new encoder options. Now, look at the actual design itself. There's nothing there. There's not all these wires crisscrossing and a whole bunch of buttons. There's just the NVM proxy. If I open up this NVM proxy, I am greeted with the ability to choose what I want to route, not just to one of my displays, but to all of my displays. So the displays are coming up now. The bottom row has received its instructions. The top row should be filling in momentarily. And what I'm going to do is just choose to control any or all of these displays at the same time. Maybe I want to say, hey, let's change group 1. That is the top row, and I'm going to change all of their sources right now. Boom, there they go, they've changed. Maybe I just want to change, let's say I want to target number 1, just this first screen over here. I'll change its source, and we're done, just like that. I can continue to do that all day long with this proxy and control whatever it is I choose to change. Easy peasy. That is the NVM series. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask me or anyone here at the booth. Thanks for watching.